Hey, Brandon, you want to look at it?
I need them for you. Once you have them.
Yeah, but Teresa just took her pen. You ain't got no cards?
Do we got a phone for Miss Hannah?
Yeah. No, I got it. I got it right here.
Miss Hannah, you hear me?
Yeah, what is it?
Yeah.
All right, I can't hear you yet, but they getting you. I heard a little bit.
Can you hear me?
I can. I'm not gonna say they did it on purpose, Miss Hannah.
92.
What?
It's nothing. It's 7:00. I'd like to call to order the August 20th, 2024 Operational Services Committee meeting. If we can have a roll call, please.
Ms. Gonzalez, Mr. Riddle,
Present.
Mr. McBride,
Present.
Ms. Hannah,
Yes.
Ms. Lunsing, Ms. Fabian, President Ewing.
Here, so I do know Ms. Lindsay had to step out due to open house, so she should be joining us as soon as that is over with. Ms. Gonzalez was traveling, so she'll be unable to be here tonight. We do have a quorum in the room with 4 board members present, and then Ms. Hannah is participating by phone, which this is just a committee meeting, so it doesn't require an exception. Well, it does. It's a public meeting, but we voted on it. I'll do it to be safe. Well, you're not participating. I mean, you just listening in. So with that, I would like first item is the discussion items under the Oakdale Greenhouse or approval.
Approval.
Sorry.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the June 18th meeting, OSC meeting.
Yep, item 3A, we got a motion from Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second from Ms. Fabian. Any comments or questions on the motion? Any corrections to the minutes? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. This was a discussion topic that the board asked to bring back, so we'll do so at this time with the Oakdale Greenhouse Capital Project.
Thank you. Good evening, board president, board members, staff, community, superintendent. So you'll notice the first item on the agenda is the Oakdale Greenhouse. This is a capital project that's been discussed for the last several months, going back to February. We did discuss this at the budget workshop number 2 weeks ago because the bids were received above the estimate. If you all recall, this was intended to be a memorial for a former staff member at Oakdale, to honor that, as well as to provide some resources to the students through the greenhouse curriculum and programming. We've tried to provide a detailed breakdown for purposes of discussion on the agenda item this evening, to highlight the benefits as well as how we got to this point, and based on the follow-up that was mentioned at the last meeting regarding reduction of scope to reduce costs, which we attempted to do, but as you can see based on the financial breakdown, that reduction in size did not reduce the cost. So I know Ms. Quinones Nelson from Oakdale is here, as well as Mr. Schomburger. So please, the staff is here, and Mr. Briner is here as well to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Fabian?
Have you guys looked at any of the farm to school grants? Will anything in there be producing anything that's that sounds horrible, anything that will be consumed or can be consumed by kids so that you can apply for farm to school grants?
What do you think about this? What do you think?
Okay, because
Ms. Q, you want to come up here and speak to that?
It wasn't budgeted.
It's okay.
it's usually good news when you're up here.
I'm going to pull it down. Good evening, everyone, board members, community members, superintendent. I did go to CLC because they have a farm that they're getting going over there.
The aquaponics?
Yep. And they're still in the works, so we're communicating. We hope to partner with them, but it's really early in the game. But I have gone out there, met with Mr. Ruiz, the dean over there, and he gave us a tour. So keep your fingers crossed that we'll be partnering with them a little bit in the future. And Mr. Schomburger has someone he's talked to as well.
Good evening, board and community. So to answer your question, I've been working diligently every day, trying to get grants, trying to get fundraising from individuals and corporations. But from the grant perspective, I've talked to a lot of different organizations, but have not had a lot of great success in terms of getting people to get back to me. The goal is to grow food that not only the kids can eat and take home, but also do the farmers market where they can help in the community. And have been stressing that to the folks who are giving out the grants. But To my chagrin, it's been a much more difficult process to get people to respond back to me and to have interest in what we're doing. There's a lot that you can just fill out online, so I filled out blindly a lot of different grants, but haven't heard back from many folks.
So I'll point you in the direction of our nutrition department at the Illinois State Board of Ed, because they do run that program for that grant. There actually is, they haven't even made a dent in that budget right now, so they
Do you have a
can
name
help
of
you
anybody by
with that.
chance?
I can email it to you. And then, like, specifically at Oakdale, I used to have a couple of farm beds and, or plant beds over there when I taught over there. And I used the University of Illinois Extension, and the Lake County Farm Bureau.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I introduced, Q to the Eliza Fournier up at, Lake County, and so talked to a lot of, and she's been great. I mean, I've gotten a lot of contacts from a lot of folks, and made a lot of phone calls, had a lot of meetings, but,
The Lake County Farm Bureau always has a yearly grant. The way that we would do it is we'd have each teacher that is contributing fill out the grant, so then the money would accumulate for the year to be able to get what we need. So there's ways around to get
Yeah.
more when you need more.
excellent. Any
And
suggestions?
also
anybody
the
has?
foundation, you can put that into the, you should have received an email about the foundation grant,
Yeah,
our Waukegan Foundation, so.
thank you.
Board President?
Go ahead, Mr. Ritter.
Yes, I had a couple questions. Since the cost, increased considerably, I wondered if indeed we have talked with somebody like Mr. Green at John Lewis Middle School, had him come out, because he does have a big greenhouse, he has an aquaponics. I'm not sure if we were considering that as well at this greenhouse, but I do see that there was heat considered and, electricity and all the plumbing that had to go out there. Did we consult with somebody like that? One of my other concerns was just the fact that on the south side you have some very tall trees, and was that the best location? Because a greenhouse certainly wants a lot of sun. Who did we have come out to pick out the site where you were going to place this greenhouse? And then I guess the other part is, do we have somebody on staff who is, such as Mr. Green, is a teacher that's really knows a lot about growing vegetables? I'm totally for a memorial, and I'm totally for a greenhouse. It's just that the cost more than doubled, and I was concerned about the sustainability of building a greenhouse and not having somebody on staff who really has the time and expertise to operate that greenhouse, such as Mr. Green. So I'm just wondering where you are with all that.
I have reached out to Mr. Green. I have been out to Lewis. He gave me a tour. I've reached out again. I'm trying to get a hold of Molly, the principal over there, so that she can help with the STEM teacher that worked, like the role that he has. I know the building probably won't be up and running this year, would probably be another staff that we'd have to hire. At this time, that I'm very connected with the community. I'm looking for community partners to come and help. We have From Hood to Table that is on board with helping us with this program, along with many parents that are gardeners that have expressed their willingness to come to Oakdale and help our students with this program.
Right. And then I just, one thing that had been discussed previously with the board when we met a few weeks back was the fact of, could we build something smaller to start with? I don't know if we've looked at other schools to see what they have, elementary schools, but would it be possible to do something like that, or has that been
I think there was some comparisons in prices. I'm going to let Mr. LeBaron Moulton go over that with you.
Right.
It looked like the prices were pretty similar for a smaller one. I think we're talking like $25,000. I know probably sounds like a lot to you. To us, I think go big or go home.
Yeah, so if you look in the breakdown of the costs, I believe it was $373,000 versus $400,000. The foundation, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing is really the primary cost. The size of the structure itself didn't really make much of a cost difference. To answer an earlier question you asked, Mr. Riddle, excuse me, we already have a lot of paved area on the west side of the building, so the location that was identified by a district architect as being optimal, as well as some of the directional boring that would be required for the, electrical and mechanical for that location. So that's how it was identified.
We had a question from Mr. McBride, and then I saw Mr. Edwards.
I just want to say that over at John Lewis, when State Representative Eddie Washington was alive, that was his baby. So I would suggest to you, Adrian, who's our state rep now, reach out to her, because that's how they got there, because of Eddie Washington. He brought funds in from the state. So I don't know how that went and what avenue he took down there from the state to get those dollars, but I'm sure that it can be duplicated, because she's our state rep now.
Right.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Mr. Edwards.
Well, first of all, I want to correct Mr. Bride. It's not Adrian, it's Rita, sir. That's who you may want to call as your state rep, right? But I want to ask this question because I'm listening to the price and we're talking about over $300,000. And I appreciate the memorial and the reasoning behind it. But oftentimes my concern is how we do something for one school and not all of the schools. Oftentimes we talk about the separation, the divide, and things of that nature. So what I want to say to you guys tonight is, when we're talking about programs like this, I ask you guys to ask yourself this. If you was a kid and you went to a school and you went to visit another school and you think that they had something that you thought was cool, right? So we got to look at that. I do appreciate the questions Mr. Riddle asks, because do we have somebody that understands this, that knows this? So we're talking about $300,000+ to get this building up and going. We haven't looked at those things. We haven't hired nobody. It's a lot of things that nothing to you guys, but this seems to starting to be the practice of the district, that we just throw this money out here and we spend it, and we're not prepared for the things that's we should be. And then the last thing, so we sitting here questioning them about $300,000 to do something for our kids. Y'all just got a $30 million bond or a fist to get. We throw money away all the time, y'all. This is one of these instances right here that they shouldn't even have to be up here asking for this. Because if this is for the kids, then let's go ahead and make it happen. It is their money. The money is for them. We pay for all of these trips, all of these conferences, and all of that all year. Last year we was almost at over $200,000 on conferences. And then you guys don't even come teach us anything about what you learned. So again, let's figure those things out, and then let's get back to old school. Let's do some car washes. Let's set up some lemonade stands all around. It's people in this community that really wants to support and be involved, but we feel like you guys are so secluded. We don't never know anything, and everybody don't come here. So if we get out there a little bit more, I promise you, y'all, it'll be nothing for us to raise $300,000 even in the city of Waukegan. If I can do 65 in 2 months, I know we can do 300 in a year.
I appreciate your comment, and I just, Michael can speak to this. They've raised over $100,000 for this program, Mr. Schomburger and his family. So we're still getting donations in, and we're still working on getting donations in, but it's not for lack of us not trying to do it as well. Just so you know, there's fundraising going on right now. Still.
My question is to the district in general. Mr. Riddle mentioned the John Lewis School, and I know that program is up and running. What about the greenhouse at Cook Magnet? That is something that at one point in time was in disrepair. Then there was some fundraising done to bring it back. But it's one of those things that even if the funding was 100% there is that ongoing cost of, it's a specialty building. The district has to maintain it and that kind of stuff like that. So are all our district greenhouses up and running right now?
And so, Brett, And I think that is more of the sentiment, right? It's not that we don't support the project. It is the sticker shock of one price, then it be another price. And that's okay because we want to, not because if it's for the kids, right? But to Mr. Vukovic's point, there have been times, even with the Lewis greenhouse, where somebody has to be there during the summer. Somebody has to be there during school breaks, right? And so making sure that as we build this out, if this is the direction that we're going, that we have a plan so that 3 years, 4 years from now, we're not saying we had this beautiful, memorial and we were honoring, but that we didn't have a person that was able to keep it going or continue it. And then the only comment, because Mr. Edwards talks about a great point, is I don't think we're haggling around the money, but it is one of those is we just went through the budget process, and even with the $30 million bond, everybody can see where those dollars were allocated. 100% of those dollars are going to support student needs at buildings. And I'm looking at you, Ms. Polk, right? So we can talk about what is benefiting the students, but it's not just like, I keep wanting to remind us that we do want to be cognizant of where we're putting the resources. And so if we can go there, to Mr. Vukovic's point of making sure where we stand with our current greenhouses that we have in the district, and then if we can speak to maybe some of the planning that'll take place, Principal Keonis Delson, around how do we just ensure sustainability for the project.
So just a point of clarification here before I go to Ms. Quinones here. So number one, I agree with you. Like every school should have the opportunity to have what we're hoping to have at Oakdale. My dream is that every school, that not just in Waukegan, but I would love to get a foundation going called Caitlin's Greenhouse, where we're raising money and we can build greenhouses not only through Waukegan but other areas as well. Little baby steps. Number two, to Ms. Quinones' point, so I've been, again, tirelessly on the phones for the past year. So we have raised over $100,000. The goal is to keep the momentum, and I know it's like, well, why can't we wait another year or two? But we'd really like to get this going. It is for the kids, and so the goal is to get this moving so they can start to learn about sustainability, about growing their own food, about nutrition. Number three, just from the John Lewis standpoint, right, their greenhouse has aquaponics, hydroponics, and raised beds. Why they are year-round is because of the aquaponics, which they're growing from the fish feces, and so somebody needs to be there every day. I don't think we need aquaponics at Oakdale. It's a big expense and a big responsibility. Hydroponics and raised beds would start to grow food that they could utilize and then give back. So you wouldn't need somebody there, year-round, which would be great. And then lastly, in terms of how do we keep sustainability of the upkeep, which is a great point, back to car washes, back to community service, back to bake sales. The hope is to raise money throughout the year for upkeep and maintenance once this gets going. So just some points of reference there to hopefully get this moving forward and helping the kids. But I'll give it to Ms. Quinones for the other comments.
I just want to review some of the benefits that our students would have. It's enhanced understanding of science concepts. And you're talking about our elementary students, and some of them may go feed right into Lewis, so then they've gotten some of that background knowledge. We have summer school right now. Maybe we're looking in the future of how many kids want to come to Oakdale for summer school to get some experience with the greenhouse, and that might expand them to want to go to Lewis and grow there. Improve environmental awareness. We all know what year we're in. We've got to provide this information to our students. Hands-on learning, interdisciplinary connections, personal and social development, that's just to name a few. So it's not just a place to play. They're really learning hands-on, and it's about being in touch with the future and helping them with the future. Ms. Fabian? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you don't have to sell me on the benefits. Like I said earlier, there were 6 raised beds at Oakdale, and it was maintained, and we had the kids learning and playing. Those beds aren't there anymore. So to their point is, when there isn't a staff or when there isn't a person there that's maintaining something, then we spent all this time and effort, and then it just kind of dies down and then disappears, right? So that's where I think that a lot of the comment is coming from too, is just making sure not just funding, but also staffing and training and ensuring that if we are going to invest in something, that the kids get to use it not just for one school year, but continuously, so that it is, it's a sustainability piece of it, because when you're going at that, ours was a small scale, right? But when you're going at that grand of a scale, it's a lot for the upkeep, which is why I mentioned the farm to school grant, because those grants are higher end grants that, $1 million grants, but they also provide for that training and that professional development, because you are going to have school staff that knows what they're doing to maintain that over time. Like I said, I'm all for having a greenhouse, having farming, teaching our kids agricultural awareness and just everything that goes in with that. I mean, I used to do math concepts, everything with it. But again, if that staff member leaves and somebody's not there to maintain it, then we've invested all this money and it just sits there and dies. So that's a thought, like, how do we plan out? Right, but this is a big investment, so, and if it's a memorial, you also want to respect that and ensure that it's going to be sustainable. So just planning out on who's going to, do you have plans for staff to be trained and somebody to be there, during those breaks? To your point on Brian's greenhouse, when winter came along and the fish froze, right, we had to come back and find a way to remedy that. So you learn sometimes by doing, but then, like, now that we know, let's plan for it.
May I make a suggestion? Can I ask Mr. Schomburger and Miss Catalina Kionis-Nelson that we just put a stick pin in this and let's see if we can find a grant that can support this. I'm hearing that there's some grants out there with ISB, and let's look at it this week together so you're not working alone, and that we could support you through the superintendent's office, and we'll just scour and see what's out there, or maybe even ask Abby if they would partner with us. There's some ideas that we could put out there. Does that sound like a viable option?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm all for wanting to be as fiscally responsible as possible. I would just say, John Lewis got a grant from Abby. I've talked to Abby. I've talked to Cardinal. I've talked to Baxter. I've called the Fortune 100 that are in the area here. Abby, very disappointing. Anybody here works for Abby? If you know somebody at Abby, send them our way. But they were very non-responsive and not very nice about it, the folks that I talked to. So I was disappointed in that, but I'm happy if there's any connections anybody on the board has. I think one of you knew somebody at Cardinal. If you have a name there, I talked to somebody in HR and they weren't very helpful, and they're right in the backyard. I was trying to sell the community of you're right here. So I'm all for again trying to grab corporate dollars, trying to get those grants. I know there's a lot of money. You mentioned some $1 million grants. I haven't seen those in the work that I've been doing. Again, want to point me in the right direction. I'm happy to do the groundwork to try to get those. But
Yeah,
my goal is I just want to lose momentum on the
And
project.
we wouldn't expect you to write it on your own. That's something that we would partner with you to assist, right? So if you give our team a few days, and then I can email you in a few days, let us just scour and see what's out there. If there's any viable prospects out there, there may be some, there may be none, but if we don't look, we won't know. And I think partnering together will have more synergy to be able to open those doors. And working together, I think we can get this accomplished.
Yeah, for
Great.
the record, and then as we continue, this wasn't a no, Ms. Kionis-Nelson, right? So, and I'm saying that.
It's on camera.
Yeah, no, this wasn't a no. It's we have a lot of projects, and I think the reason that this one popped is because as we were prioritizing this year's projects, like coming up in the fall, this was one that was recommended to be accomplished in the fall. And our goal is not saying we are all, and I'm saying that from the board dais, right, are committed to seeing this greenhouse, right? We're committed to seeing this greenhouse with the community work that you've been doing. Not only did we have your amazing daughter, but in my memory, we also had Miss Karen Jones and the work that you did in that school around STEM and the work that you all did together. So it'll be a lasting legacy that will be in Waukegan Public Schools. We're just trying to figure out the best way in order to make that happen while juggling, as Mr. Edwards mentioned, our 22 other buildings and some of the other requests and needs that we have coming into. So I do want to just reaffirm that piece, and then with the superintendent we can talk and figure out when it's coming back. I know if that may impact timeline, the board should be made aware of that, and so if you can bring that information back to us, maybe either an email before our next board meeting. All Thank you, Ms. Gill. Thank you, Ms. Schabacher. Any final comments?
As
Yeah.
I leave with Mr. Schomburger, just a reminder that there's been $100,000 that has
Yes.
been, collected in this fundraiser. So it's not for, we're not trying here. We're extra trying to make sure this happens. And you know my commitment to this community.
Yes, ma'am.
And we have, urban farmers. We got Jeff Williams on board, Chef Rob on board. We got family members that want to help. And when we do this, what happens? We start seeing that growth and parents' involvement and all that wonderful stuff that you see happening at Oakdale like this. So keep that in mind, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have the information for possible board action. The Sodexo beginning of the year information has been listed there. Any individuals from Sodexo? Yes, I knew that. I just wanted to make sure. Because they came and because there were questions, it is not unfortunate. Like, we all had questions, but I know Ms. Gonzalez specifically, Ms. Lindsay, and even Ms. Hannah were some that actually had specific questions. But maybe for the community, if we want to just run through some of the successes very quickly, or Sodexo members are here, so to let us know how the start of the year is going.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Ewing. So you are correct. We do have staff members from Sodexo here. What I'll do is I will highlight the successes in the year recap, and then if there are any questions, please feel free to ask. Mr. White, if you could go to slide 4, I believe it is. Yes. So again, I will present this, and any specific questions, please ask. So you see some participation comparisons between the 2022-2023 year and the 23-24 school year. We had 16.7% growth in breakfast participation and 11.9% growth in lunch participation. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that the district, with the assistance of Sodexo, implemented a dinner program for the Boys and Girls Club and the Stars program. 10,300 meals served. The dinner program is different than after-school snacks. It's more substantial food for the students in those programs. There was an installation, as you see on the bullet points on the right. Taste for Brand at the high school, increase in option. One that was significant for Sodexo in the district was employee retention of 85%. And currently, at the time of the presentation creation, 2 vacancies in the position of being filled. So very close to being 100% staff for Sodexo throughout the district. Installed the new foodie brand at the middle schools, and launched the Voice of the Field for frontline employee feedback for the Sodexo administration. So those are some of the highlights from last year. There's more information in the attachment, but if there are any questions, we do have staff here representing Sodexo from district, as well as a staff member from the corporate office.
And so I know one of the questions that I'll speak for the board members and for the community was the app, right? So are we close to launching, not launching? Are there any issues with that? But that was one of the questions that I do know specifically board member Lindsay voiced. And then as a parent, right, that's something I would be interested in as well.
Yes.
Or, yeah,
No,
microphone.
come to the
There are
mic.
people, so it works online.
You give me a microphone, it could be dangerous. So,
Yes.
my name's Kendall
Oh,
Zuniga.
here.
I'm sorry. My name is Kendall Zuniga, and I'm from the corporate office. And so to speak to the app is called NutriSlice. I encourage everybody to download it. Previously, we had an app called So Happy, and we found that NutriSlice had so much better capabilities of being able to not only promote our food, but to be able to communicate with parents. It has over 52 different languages. We can post pictures of the food that's actually being served here in Waukegan, as well as ask for the parents' feedback automatically, or parent or student feedback day to day over each dish, each vegetable side, each fruit side. It really drills down to give the students and the parents say in what their menu looks like. So yes, it is launched. Waukegan was one of the first ones in the nation to have that, and it is ready for use.
So launched, and then does that also, I know one of the features was about the meal selection where there's choice. So does this app allow us to select the meals for the students?
So
as a parent, like I can go in and pick, like if they, and I'm just, whatever the things are that they are doing. I know when we met and we did a food tasting, and that was one of the things that we were excited about when we partnered with Sodexo.
So Miss Kendall was not here for that, so I just want to kind of merge the two for what we saw. So what was represented to the board last year was So Happy. We've transitioned to NutriSlides, as she said. If you look at the subsequent slides, this app is active. We'll be sending out some communication on this. For real-time data, you see the screenshots in the presentation. You can download the app, select the school that your child attends, and you can see the menu in real time for the school your child attends, as well as the nutrition facts, and you can select from a variety of languages. When there are menu changes, it will be reflected here. So this is something, if you could keep going, Mr. White. So this is something in discussing with the team locally that is active that we want to steer parents towards taking a look at, as well as getting their feedback. Now, the second portion, because we're transitioning as far as the online ordering, I believe is what you may be referencing, Mr. Ewing. That aspect is currently not available, but we're looking to transition to that, and hopefully the student advisory participation, which is a committee that we're looking to put together for the fall semester, will be able to contribute to that, so we can look at that for transitions potentially in the pilot in the spring with those, or in the fall, excuse me, with those students to see how it, work out the bugs of ordering, and then roll that out later this year or when we transition to summer school next year. So it is a transition process, but currently the menus are active on the app.
So parents can go, they can see the menu, they can give real-time feedback. It is multiple languages that they can access the information in, but as of right now, the food ordering option is not available. I just wanted to recap that for the public and for the board. Ms. Fabian,
I guess this would be more for Mr. Moten. The app looks great. I was looking at the other slides, and I'm happy that it's available in multiple languages, but as often is the case, we need to have a communication plan on how are we going to let parents know that this app is available, and then how are we going to work with them to ensure that they understand how the app works and all the capabilities. How are we going to teach parents to be able to use this app? Because it's great, we love it, but we want to make sure that it's being utilized. That'll be my first question.
Sure. So the first time we had an opportunity to take a look at this app and test it out was the end of last week. So even though it is active internally, Ms. Williams and myself, we did review it, spot check some things, take a look at it, and we did discuss rolling out a communication plan that will be strategic to ensure that parents know what they're looking at, how to download the app in the multiple languages, as well as have some tutorials available on how to utilize the app.
Perfect.
I'd like to add one thing to that real quick. This app comes with a ton of marketing on the back end, not only for our teachers to be able to use it successfully, parents to be able to use it, as well as our nurses. I mean, they're one of our key stakeholders in being able to tell what meal might have what allergen. So there's a lot of different marketing tools that come with this and educational tools that we will turn over and provide to the district to help us promote that and get that word out.
Thank you. And then you stated on your last slides that you installed the new Foodie brand and Taste For brand. Can you tell us what those are?
Yeah, so Taste For is our high school program. Taste For is just basically the marketing and the signage that goes into the cafeteria. It's more modern and exciting for the students, but my favorite part about Taste For is that we offer things that they're used to, such as pizza, burgers, different things like that, but then we have a special a day that we call our adventure rotation, where students can come through and try something new that they might not have ever tried before. So that is at our high school, and then Foodie is at our middle school. So it's kind of really just helping those students grow into the foodie that they're becoming out in the world already. I have 3 Sodexo students, myself, and they're more in tune with what they want to eat than I probably am. So just getting them kind of making those healthy decisions while still offering things that they're used to seeing, so that way they're comfortable and excited to eat with us. So Foodie is at the middle school, Taste For is at the high school.
Thank you. We appreciate you all coming and joining us this evening.
Ray has a question.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Mr. Vukovic. Mr. Vukovic had a question.
Thank you. That app sounds like a great thing but I just got a question. We're in the second week of school. Something new like that, why hasn't the district held their feet to the fire? That should have been rolled out when the school year started, so parents don't. Now you're going to have to come back in and try to educate parents on something different. The consistency here doesn't make sense. You had your, the late start day, early start day was always on Wednesdays. You put out a schedule on that, and then I'm told that last week a new schedule came out, it's now on Mondays. That's poor planning, poor management.
Can I address that real quick? So our goal is that when this parent goes on and they click on that menu button on the website, there's going to be a difference, and they're going to see basically it looks like an upgraded version of what they saw last year, but where they go to find the menus is the same. The interface that they see is very user friendly, similar to what they saw last year, so that's a great concern, but most of that is kind of self-led if the parent's going there to look already, and then just being able to add the app to your phone is an added bonus, and be able to get those alerts of different menus or different things from day to day.
I want to ask two questions. First time hearing about this, right? So listening tonight, are you saying to me that eventually students will get on there to be able to decide what they want to eat daily?
They'll be able. Go ahead. You can address, and I'll be.
The reason why I asked that because I want some clarification, right?
Yeah.
Because we get lost in words now, and we say something and we take it one way, and
No, this is to Mr. Vukovic's point, right? Sodexo is a partner, and part of that partnership is us having this collaborative conversation. We're required to do this in public at a public meeting, and so we did a tasting, and part of even to help them plan, because their business, they want to, be profitable, and they want the kids to get what it is that they want. So it was supposed to, if I have 3 options, parents could go in and pre-select, right? That and I'm not using this because I know that's not what you guys serve, but if it's enchiladas, pizza, and hot dogs, I could go in and say that my kid wants hot dogs, because with the previous vendor, as an example, they may say I'm doing 100 lunches, 100 hot dogs, 100 pizzas, 100 hamburgers. Well, if all the kids want hamburgers that day and you run out of hamburgers, then kids don't have a choice. So this app was supposed to help, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, how it was pitched to the board, help them with planning to make sure that they had enough of what the kids were requesting. So that was one of them. And then I think the kids just, instead of standing in the lunch line too, that was part of it, they would be able, was that at the high school, or am I making that up?
Yes, sir. At our high school, the goal is that a lot of our students, if anybody is out in the world, even McDonald's right now has pre-order where you can go through a special line and pick up your meal. Now, there's some things that we need to make sure that are in place before that. So one, we need to make sure that the users, the secondary students, the parents are comfortable with the app. We also need to make sure that we align with what the principals see as their lunchroom procedures. We have the space to do it because usually it takes an additional space, a line space. So we're working through all those little nuances right now, and then we're really excited to work with our student advisory council that's launching this fall to make sure that we are hearing what the students' voice is, and so we're not just deploying something and hoping it works. We're getting their buy-in, their feedback, and aligning with what the principal sees. So that way, when a secondary student does come through the line, they could do that pre-order option, because we know getting to their seat and hanging out with their friends is sometimes their number one priority, not nutrition. So we want to help them to be nutritious and still keep that number one priority.
Okay, and then the other 2 questions is, will they be able to do it for the week, or do they have to do it daily? Parents, that is.
So at our elementary schools, there's some different laws that we run into. For example, we can't get an elementary school student's name, and we can't get any of their information just to protect that student. Okay. So, but one thing that we can do is kind of create almost like an online portal where the parent can go and say, for the week, this is what my student is going to tentatively eat. We'll always make a little extra here and there. So that way we send we call them tally sheets basically, to our kitchens. So that way they know how much to prepare and how much to move through for the day. But I will say that one thing that is exciting, especially with the Student Advisory Council, is they're going to help us make our menus. So that way when we'll we'll have a driver menu item that's on there. So there'll be a lot of options for our students, but we'll be able to gauge based off of that menu and what the students tell us, probably will be the hottest item for the day.
Okay. And then the last thing, to the district. You guys are going to be encouraging the principals in all of the schools to create some type of an event to bring the parents in to do a tutorial for this site on how to navigate it and things of that nature. I think that's important, as Board Member Fabian said tonight. A lot of times parents have a hard time navigating through these systems, and to us it may be easy. You know what I'm saying? But I think that would be a good idea to encourage these principals to put on some type of thing to bring the parents in to see the site. But thank you guys so much. Sounds exciting.
So did you have a question, Randy? If you got the mic, and then I'm gonna come
Yeah, I
back.
just got one question. So you kind of hit on it. The problem was last year, because I had 2 students in the district last year, one at the high school, one at the middle school. And the problem was, is the time they got to lunch and got up there, what they wanted was already gone. So they had to select for something different. And I have a kid now in middle school, and what you guys rolled out last year for the taste testing, you had in the schools for a couple months, they loved it, and then the menu changed. And I'm being one to tell you, he doesn't eat the school lunches. He says it's nasty, and he don't eat it. You know, and that's the thing I want to say is we need to make sure more kids are involved in the taste testing and to make sure we have enough. Because I've been in the schools, and there's a lot of waste being thrown in the garbages for the lunch. And we spend millions and millions of dollars on food, and it's not supposed to go in the garbage. It's supposed to go in the kids' stomachs. You know, so we got to make sure it's edible and they actually like it. Because there was one, I don't remember, it might have been pizza dippers or something. Something the students loved, and then it disappeared.
And I'm sorry, Randy. Like I said, me and Randy agree. That was actually going to be my comment with Mr. Edwards. Is having, once we get that app capability, will help what we all want to do, Sodexo included, is to cut down on waste. It's because when you're able to provide the students what it is that they want and able to plan and create the quantities, it's better for Sodexo, it's better for our students, and it helps us eliminate waste. So great point, Mr. Sabecki.
And real quick, just want to show you guys this. On this slide right here, when you go on and it says the item that the student's going to have, if you click on that, your student could go on there and rank it like happy face, smiley face, the emojis, you know, the kind of gradual frowny. So that way it kind of helps us to make that, and then that makes sure that your student has a voice in the menu creation.
Thank you.
The one question that I have for you guys is I now have 2 children within the district, one in elementary and one in the high school, and I need to make sure that their allergies are being paid attention. So cross-contamination. How do you guys work with that, especially making the food and making sure that you're watching out for this child's food allergy and not touching then if you go to that pre-order, like almost like McDonald's, that they can have it, how are you going to make sure that that child's food is safe?
So just a blanket answer real quick, but I'd love to dive into that because we know every student's different and we know that every allergen's different. So that's really where we partner with a parent, but we also partner with a school nurse to make sure that we're ensuring safety with that student and what that student medically needs. But one thing, I have a student that's it's an allergen that isn't where we couldn't cross-contaminate, but I want to make sure that he's aware that he has that allergen and he makes those great decisions to hopefully have a better end of the day. So with this, you can go on and you can select for your student what allergens they have, and then it will eliminate the things on the menu that student can't have. So it's a great way, especially as your student's getting older, to help them make those decisions really quickly and easily, because sometimes we know the nutrition information is very hard to navigate and to see the different things. So it's a really great tool to use as that student's getting older and being able to make those decisions. But as far as our younger students, we want to make sure that we have that communication with the nurse and we're really making that one-on-one decision to keep that student safe.
Thank you. And again, thank you all for answering our questions and for your collaboration.
Thank you so much.
Have a great one. We'll run through the rest of these items. So similar, we got item 5B, community members, if you did have a question on any of the items, but the information has been there presented. Approval for the purchase of 3 Bulldog white buses. Financial impact, the amount is $318,000. It was budgeted. Are there any questions, comments from either the community or board members? Ms. Fabian?
Just a quick comment. I'm all for the buses. I love them. I love that we give our children opportunities. But just again, the communication piece, ensuring that like the procedures and protocols trickle down to the schools so that staff members know what they need to do to be able to essentially check out the buses for anything that they may need with this, to do with the students.
Awesome. All right. Next up is item 5C, the impact fee update. So that information has been presented. And this was a request from the board, right, about how many of those related to taxes?
Yes, Mr. Ewing, we had two requests for development. One is not impacted because they're efficiency and one-bedroom apartments for seniors and disabled, and the other one is on hold because the developer has put a pause on their development.
Thank you. All right, and then we got the Ms. Hannah's favorite things, change orders. So what's this one?
Can I ask you a
Ooh, so
question?
we're in the overrun. So we've eaten up the contingency, Deputy Moten. And then I heard you, Mr. Riddle, as soon as he.
Yes, Mr. Ewing, I'll take a moment to explain this, and excuse me, Ms. Jimerson, Mr. Briner can help support. Washington Campus Retaining Wall. We did this work. This was a life safety project. There were a lot of unforeseen conditions based on deterioration and items that really couldn't be identified at the time it was specified. So even though we did do specifications, again, significant deterioration, we did add pictures just to give the visual, because we thought it may be a little difficult to explain the location and just the severity of the condition when we opened it up. But you'll also see within the attachment there is a log that highlights the details of the itemized cost associated with the level of deterioration for the retaining wall, some asphalt repairs. There were some additional repairs included in this work for concrete from a previous water main replacement at the Washington campus, which happened in the fall of 2023. So again, it's itemized there, but because it exceeds the total budget that was approved and the 10% contingency, we needed to bring it back for approval before we process this.
Thank you for that, Mr. Riddle. I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards. We have a microphone from Ray.
I was gonna say I really don't know what they do here. Please, I really need this district to help me understand something, right? This is what I talk about when I say patching things up. So we know that this building is old as ever. Why not go in, gut it out, preserve what you can, and just do the whole building, y'all? We steady patching up pieces. It's really cost us more money when we do that. And I know this may be trying, but we need to figure something out for real.
Wait, were we ready to pass a referendum? Yeah, that. And I mean that like.
Tell me what to do, sir. How many signatures you need?
No, we can talk about. It's going to have to be a long-term plan, but it's going to have to be a decision that we as a community decide because it impacts taxes. Right?
Okay, I'll call you in the morning.
But go ahead, Mr. Vukovic. I saw your hand.
Well, I understand something like this, that you have unforeseen issues. Now, the previous topic with the greenhouse, we're all here looking at, it's great that they raised $100,000 for a project that's over $400,000, but when you look through it, the district architect estimated it at $170. So you've got to have some good numbers before you go out for bid on anything.
Thank you for that. All right. So that was awareness. We'll have to take action then, I guess, at the next board meeting, or is it just, we will.
Yes, we'll have to take action. The value is presented for you. The overrun is $54,439.35. Again, we have not processed payment for this. The board will need to take action before we can process payment.
Thank you for that and for the transparency. The other reports have been presented there for information.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah,
on
of
that,
course.
though?
I'm sorry, Mr. Riddle.
Yeah, my question, Mr. Moten, is when a project, a company bids on this, do they actually look, I mean, I know there's unforeseen, but they could have gone in the tunnel, they saw a lot of cracking in the concrete. They would have known that, well, this job looks like it's gonna cost a lot more than, and so they way underbid. I'm just curious, do they actually do an inspection of what they're gonna do? Do they climb into the tunnel and look underneath and see that this concrete is in bad shape? And then, do we have any option when they low bid us and then come back and say, well, yeah, I'm gonna need more?
Yeah, so we typically have a pre-bid meeting where contractors are invited to come out and inspect the sites. In this particular instance, the work on the tunnel was added late in the bidding process, and there wasn't time to do a complete set of drawings and specifications for that. So we did increase the allowance to cover what the portion of the tunnel that we originally planned on replacing. It was only when the contractor started to do that work, got full access to the tunnel, that then we noticed, the adjacent area that looked fine from above, but underneath was in much
it
worse
was
shape.
pretty rotted, the concrete. Okay, all right.
Ms.
thanks.
Lindsay.
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify something that you just said. So it was added late in the process because I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Why was it late in the process?
The district added it. We had decided to do the retaining wall and the front entry at door 29, and then it was said, hey, we've also got this portion over here on the east side. So it was after we had already done all the initial work and the drawings for the base scope, then it was added that at this time when we got the concrete contractors here, can we add this as well?
Okay.
And so we said it's going to be less than 50,000 for this, for the initial portion of the tunnel.
Mm-hmm.
So we added that as an allowance.
Okay.
And then that's how that portion was
Okay,
bid.
thank you. So then I think the question really goes to Mr. Moen or Mr. Briner.
Sure. So, as the operations team reviewed this, they did identify more needs outside of the most critical area, which we originally presented to the board as a life safety project, but it was all life safety eligible and within a similar scope of work. So if you look at the breakdown of costs, the base allowance of the $75,000, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Phelps, we increased that because we were on a timeline for construction schedule, but the amount of time it would have taken to do additional schematics and architecture work, it really wasn't there in order for us to do this when the building was not, the area was not utilized during the summertime. So that's why it came like this. We did have an additional $35,000, as you can see in the breakdown, in contingency, which was 10% above the base bid amount. We were hopeful that between those two numbers, it would encompass everything, but as you can see, we were mistaken. So, but we did want to address the issue in real time while we were there. And as you can see from the photos, much like other things, we've made a lot of improvements, but there's still more that needs to be done. And this would prevent us from coming back to this project next year, 2 or 3 years down the line.
And it depends on how you look at it, right? This was more than a patch job. Is when you were going in order to repair and fix something, you decide to fix other things that are impacted, right? So, but at the end of the day, they're old buildings, and these things are going to continue to happen. Any other questions related to this item?
Yeah, I mean, it looks good now.
All right. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Again, those reports have been presented there for information.
Got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Riddle. Mr. McBride.
Mr. LeBaron, in the near future, are we going to be needing any more tuck pointing done?
Mr. McBride, we will always need tuck pointing. We're trying to prevent emergencies, but there's always going to be a need to do a project or to do regular ongoing improvements.
And I do agree with you. Till you get that backhoe and tear everything out, you don't know what's underneath there. And sometimes when you get under there, you get many surprises.
All right. With that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, seconded by Mr. Actually, I know. Yeah. Mr. McBride. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Meeting is adjourned. If we want to take a 6-minute break if we want to break. If we can meet back here at 8 p.m. to start the student achievement meeting. Thank you.
mine over downstairs too.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I don't know if you
I didn't pay no attention to you.
top it.
Yeah.
They're good.
Well, no. I'll see you in a minute.
You didn't bring me one, Jill.
You don't need it.
You don't need it.
You don't need it.
I tell you, that carrot cake was nice. We had the other, yeah, that was a real nice one.
All right, it is 8:04. I'd like to call to order the August 20th, 2024 Waukegan Public School Board of Education Student Achievement Meeting. If I could have a roll call.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Present.
Ms. Hannah? Ms. Gonzalez? Ms. Fabian?
Present.
Ms. Lansing?
Present.
President Ewing?
Here, Miss Hannah did let me know that she unfortunately was feeling worse, so she went ahead and dropped off. As we mentioned previously, Miss Gonzalez is traveling. Those are two. Everybody else is here. All right. With that, I'd like a motion to approve the June 18th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Riddle, seconded by Ms. Lindsay. Any comments or questions on the motion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. And minutes are approved. All right. Before we get started, just a brief statement from the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to give an update in regards to the SRO negotiations with the city of Waukegan. I am happy to report we have received a counter proposal from the city this afternoon to our $150,000 proposal. Out of respect for all parties involved and the integrity of the negotiation process, we will not be discussing the specifics of these talks publicly at this time. We thank you for your understanding in this matter, and we continue to work on a viable option with the city of Waukegan.
Thank you. With that, we have some we have primarily information items. Can we scroll down on the agenda, Mr. Lee? I don't have it in front of me. If we can go to item 6A, the presentation, and then we'll go backwards. Yep.
Sure. So I'm going to ask Doctors Andrews and Manoni to come up. They are going to present on a number of these items. Oh, sorry. That could have been an accident.
Good evening, Board of Education and community members. We are happy to open up this evening with the opening of school, week 1, last week, beginning on August 12th, and we have a few short slides to provide some information for you all. If we can scroll. Okay, the first thing we're sharing out about is the Back to School Resource Fair, which was hosted on July 27th at the Brookside campus on a beautiful sunny afternoon. There were 3,641 people in attendance, and we had 65 community partners who participated, and 30 of those partnerships were actually new this year. Some of the new resources this year included Hair Braiders, Game Truck, Passport Health. There were over 2,000 book bags given away on the day of the fair, and remaining book bags were given to schools and community partners after the fact.
Good afternoon, board, and community members, superintendent. Attendance. So we want to talk about the attendance and all of the students that showed up on day 1. Elementary schools saw 94.11% attendance. Middle schools, 93.5%. And the high schools collectively, 89.42%. AOEC is 79.78%, and the district average is 93.11%. So those are excellent numbers, but we are still working to get more students in the classrooms today. Our enrollment. So pre-K, 280 students showed up on day 1, which was Wednesday was the first day. In the PM, there was 188 students, and then full day pre-K was 85 students. Kindergarten, 772 students collectively. Elementary, 4,944 students. Middle school, 2,912 students. And the Brookside campus, 2,098 students. The Washington campus, 2,016 students. AOEC is 108 students, and we have 63 students that were outplaced. So we want to talk a little bit about safety. Of course, safety is the number one priority for us and as area superintendents. So we want to talk about some of the programs and some of the ways that safety officers have been trained. So we have the CPI refresher. We have a mutual respect process. They've been trained in Title IX, sexual harassment, the McKinney veto, bomb threat, and relationship buildings. And at the high school, the initiative, we have a new system that tracks kids as they enter the building, and will send student and parents notifications of where they are in the building, whether or not they attend and get to lunch on time, if they ditch class. And so that's the new process and a new system that has been implemented this school year.
Wanted to share some highlights from Area 1, which includes all 15 of our elementary schools and then the Lightfoot Early Childhood Center. In a number of our schools, we saw PBIS launching across classrooms and set up in station rotations. So the administration and teachers were leading small sections of students around what entry, dismissal, lunch, recess, hallway, etc. expectations looked like. And so we saw a lot of that collaboration and community building across the buildings. In addition, we saw student engagement was very high on day one. Learning is happening in every classroom already, particularly with the launch of our new Tier 1 literacy curriculum. We certainly see building and classroom look and feel. You should notice as soon as you walk into school buildings that they are beautiful and ready to receive students, which includes hallways free of clutter, bulletin boards up and ready to receive student work, etc. We noticed that staff are joyful and ready for a successful year ahead. That began at the kickoff at the Genesee Theater the Friday before students arrived, and maintained that momentum through week 1. And also we saw in hallways and in classrooms throughout week 1, our ISTs and instructional coaches are supporting that beginning of year testing. So in particular in kindergarten and first grade, where students need to take one-on-one testing, we're using staff really efficiently to make sure that that testing happens within that BOY window.
And for Area 2, all schools, we have a detailed checklist. We want schools to be vibrant, and students, as they came in on the first day, hallways were vibrant, classrooms are ready to go, so we were excited to accept students on day 1. Smooth transitions. So middle schools have adopted a no-bell transition, and I was at most of them all week long, and those transitions were pretty seamless. Very, very excited to see that. I'm going to just give kudos to all of our district folks who came out and supported all of the schools. Superintendent, I saw you. You were at Brookside campus. You were at the security. You were getting those kids in, so we appreciate everybody. And they have actually shared and donated their time. Well, they didn't really donate it, but they have been at schools all week long. You know, from the middle school principals, I heard that they have felt really supported. They have felt supported this year, and they really appreciate the district reps coming out and supporting the schools. And okay, student services were actually available for students that were exhibiting any kind of need for that. So we appreciate that.
Sharing out just a few areas of improvement. Air conditioning, of course, the first couple of days it was very warm outside, and therefore we saw that some of our classrooms were a little warmer than we wanted, and so reached out immediately to operations to make sure those classrooms were at a manageable temperature. Continuing to recruit high quality candidates to fill the roles that are covered by our wonderful long-term subs. So there are adults in front of every single classroom of students, but we will continue to recruit for those vacancies throughout the year. I'll turn over to you for the other two.
Parent engagement. We want to make sure that we have endless opportunities for parents to engage at the middle schools and at the high schools. And so we are thinking about ways to continuously give parents another opportunity to engage, whether it be through family nights, curriculum nights. And so we really want to make sure parents are engaged in their child's learning. And that's all we have.
Thank you.
Ms. Lindsay.
I just have two quick questions. One, hopefully is super fast. How many vacancies do we have that we're looking to fill with the long-term subs? I don't have the exact number right off the top of my head, but we could definitely pull that information.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to get those numbers from Human Resources just to make sure it's accurate. We've been looking at that, though, over the past week, so that's something that actually we've been doing with finance as well, but we'll get you an accurate number.
Okay. And then this isn't really a question, it's more of a comment. So as a parent, I already received a reminder from my school about the importance of attendance for students. So I'm not going to assume, but I'm hopeful that multiple schools are doing that. I do just want to put out the reminder that if you are unwell, if you are sick, stay home. We don't need more people to get sick. And we, as a district, also have those 5 mental health days that are allotted to students should they need those as well. It is important to attend school, but just do so in a healthy way.
Thank you.
Ms. Fabian.
Just to piggyback on Ms. Lansing's first question about the vacancies, if we could be assured that those vacancies are actually posted so that it matches what we need.
That's part of the work that we're doing together with finance and HR and our department, just to make sure that we have the appropriate personnel identified so that those needs can be filled. Yeah.
I saw your hand, Mr. Vukovic.
Here, I'll get you. Thanks. There you go.
A question about the attendance numbers you had.
Sorry to hit my back to you.
First day attendance. Just curious how that stacks up to previous years.
That's an excellent question. I actually asked that today to Mr. Christensen. And so it's pretty consistent. However, one of the things that he did say is that we have to really wait a week to get an accurate picture of where we're at, because some students register and come and other kids don't come. And so there's cleaning up of some of the data. But I don't want to put words in your mouth. If you want to add anything, Mr. Christensen, you can. But it appeared to be pretty consistent from year to year at this point in the year.
Yeah, very true. So if you look at last year's number, it's a clean number, and this number is a point in time number, because we are cleaning last week and this week, calling, saying, we're missing you, where are you? We find out they've moved to another city, moved to another state, and taking them off of our rosters, so we're doing all that cleanup right now. So a lot of the students that were absent the first day actually aren't even coming back. So it's whether they were truly absent the first week or they're not returning, and that's what we are working really hard these first 2 weeks of school to make sure where they're at and making sure they know school starts and to come on in.
But does this compare? I know that's a moment in time. If you go back 1 year exactly on that day, how does that, is it about the same? Is it?
So then I would have to pull that moment in time a year ago, and I don't have that.
I just thought there'd be a...
No, I don't have that.
And I mean,
I don't have that stored over that way. But we can tell after a couple of weeks, I can make the comparison, an apples to apples comparison.
That's fair.
After a couple.
Because I was going to say, even if that number we understand is cleaned up, it would be good to know if you want to wait and feel more comfortable once you have the clean number. That's fine too.
And then it'll also be how good we were at cleaning up. You know, how clean were we on day 2 last year compared to how clean we were on day 2 this year. So I'd rather have a clean number.
Understood.
Yeah.
Mr. Edwards.
More so comments than questions. Thank you guys for the resource fair that you guys did do. I did speak at this meeting, and I spoke about some concerns as it relates to the resource fair. And I spoke about my babies in the gated communities that does not have transportation, and how do we work around that. I did what I was supposed to do. I reached out to Tasia Fields' office several times, connected with her. They told me they was gonna reach to me. I get a response back from Tasia Fields Friday evening at 4:45 talking about transportation. And the event is less than 12 hours away. So what I'm saying to y'all is, when I try to work with y'all and try to do the right thing, this is the result I always get. and I complain about this all the time. For us to have 14,000 students in the district, and I know 3,000 is a big number, but 14,000 students, that number should at least been doubled, right? And if we would have worked with me, we possibly could have did that, because a lot of kids wanted to be there. Then we talked about permission slips, and I appreciate you, Board Member McBride, because you did ask the question, you spoke about it, and they said that they would get to me. Nothing. Zero. And I made several attempts. The next thing that I want to talk about, and Superintendent, I appreciate your comment tonight as it relates to the negotiations with the city and things of that nature. I get what you guys be talking about when we saying respecting the negotiation process, where we oftentimes don't like to give numbers. But let me remind y'all that we are also talking about taxpayer dollars. So when you tell us that we're going to keep this private and we're talking about our money, we offended. It's starting to be disrespectful, y'all. You got hardworking people in this city. So then I want to talk about this resource office, as I did when we was downstairs. And I want to make this very clear. This board needs to make a decision, yes or no. This negotiation, we sick of it. And I'll pose this question to y'all again. How effective is it in our schools? What exactly are they protecting? Because part of the problem that I have is we dump almost $6 million into safety. When you're talking about the average salary, the insurance and all of that, you anywhere from $5 to $6 million. We have 100 safety officers. We have 150 police officers. So when I talk about safety, it has been a dumping ground for this district for years as a way to employ family members and friends. That's why it's so messed up. And no disrespect to safety, because I appreciate them stepping up and willing to do the job that so many won't do. But what I'm saying to this district, what are the requirements to be a safety officer? There is no real requirements. So some of the people that we got up in there, y'all, I'm sorry, they just not cut for the job. That's why the schools are so messed up. Go through there. See the relationships that they have with them. I remember we did the pilot program, Mr. Ewing, and you was part of it. We went over to Washington campus. Me and Mr. Coleman and them. We standing in the hallway. You got kids literally in the bathroom smoking pot. We say something to the safety, and what do they say to us? Well, there's an alarm, and it's supposed to ring in the main office at Washington campus, but it didn't go off. So, man, what is we going to do? When we call and say something, they don't do anything. It took everything in me to be a responsible adult, because even if that was the case, that was the dumbest thing you could have told a community member that's in your school visiting. Whether you do something every day or not, you should have acted like you was doing your job that day at that time. So I said all of that to say this. If we sit down and we do the responsible things and we actually put these kids' safety as the #1 priority, we will really take some time out and look at safety as a whole. The staff that we got, the people that we have on there. And then I'm going to say this. These teachers, they work hard. Appreciate them. And it's not their job to do safety. But I remember when I was in school, during passing period, every teacher was at their door helping with those hallways. It helps, y'all. Those secretaries ain't answering phone during passing period. They're just sitting there. Come to those doors. Those kids need to see a presence of adults. And we got to stop being afraid to say something. If we do those things, y'all, I can guarantee you we don't need police in our school. You want your kids to be there and feel comfortable and willing and want to learn, not to be in fear. If they do something or say something and the police is in the building, what's going to happen to them?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good points, Ray. The one thing that I do want to say is because I give kudos because you were one of the person who raised the issue about where there were blind spots in the high school. So the reason that we have 100 safety officers today is because we did a comprehensive safety assessment to identify what gaps existed. The reason that we added the vestibules, right, were around that. I want us as a community also, and as a board, to be more vocal, and I'll take account. I will. I want to speak for the board, take accountability for that. Is there were comments and remarks made at the podium around how to improve safety. There was a comprehensive safety assessment that looked at the building, the staff, the infrastructure, entries and exits. We can't present that plan in public, but if you remember, we went into closed session where we got the report out. So those things were considered, and we are looking at the safety of our students. The question of SROs, I'll be honest with where I stand. I think the board wants SROs, right? And when we talk about that, we've had this conversation, we survey parents, we continue to have this conversation. As a community, we do have to decide which direction we want to go. As of right now, though, I'm speaking for the board, and you guys can speak up, and I don't, but this is why this is a better forum, is I just know Officer Filatico, the reason that he's getting awards is because of the relationship that he's been able to build with those students. And so the benefit of him having him in that, you talked about individuals being scared of the police. They're not scared of that police for the most part, right? And so how do we continue to create positive interactions with police officers and be very responsible with who we put in front of our students? So there is a conversation as to the future of SROs in Waukegan Public Schools, but I think just like you and me both were there when school opened 2 years ago and they weren't there, and we had a lot of conflict, and the question was, well, where were the SROs, right? And so I can only speak for Filatico, I will only speak for Officer Filatico related to that. But I do want to say the safety and why we do it, I want to reframe it, and that's your language, and me and you have always, I'm not correcting your language. I have to give the counter from the board opinion. I don't view our safety staff as the dumping ground, right? These are the staff that are most reflective of our community. This is the bargaining unit that majority of the members live within our community, more so than administration, more so than the teachers, more so than anybody. And so I would, as Ms. Lensing reminds us, this is 100% not a call out, it's a call in. If we want to see them do better, right, we can have that conversation, but I don't want them, because a lot of times they do become the punching bag, and those people show up every day. And I talk about Mr. C, Mr. Crittenden, who, in the safeties that we had, right, Mr. Sabecki, me and you have had that conversation, who give 110% day in and day out. So I get your intent just from the board dais. I want to very publicly state that our safety staff has done a tremendous job, but they've been taking the feedback, which is why you saw all of those trainings that they've been going through. It was 9 of them or something that you all listed at the beginning of the slides, in order to show that we are taking that feedback into consideration. But I do have to speak up just in support of our safety officers who do a Herculean job, because even if it is 100 of them, it's 14,000 students. So we do appreciate their efforts, and I do appreciate those comments.
So real quick, because I got to hit you back, because I don't want my words to be mistaken that I don't appreciate safety and/or safety being into this district or them being from this community. But sir, respectfully, please don't tell me it has not been a dumping ground. I am 46 years old. I have lived in Waukegan most of my life, which means I know just about a lot of people. And I know how a lot of people got a job. And I'm not here to bash. I simply said that to make my point. When we don't have staff that is properly trained, and respectfully, yes, they show up. They are the front line, which is why I have advocated for a lot of times for them to be the one at a lot of these conferences, so they can be the one to learn this information, because they deal with the kids more than anybody, including the teachers. But I made that point to say this. When I go in that school sometimes and I look at some of my elders up in there, I oftentimes wonder if a big old gang fight break out up in there, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And I want y'all to start thinking about that, because if one of them get hurt in that school, can you imagine the outrage it's going to cause in that community? Then you got to think about the backlash of it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're not good, they don't work hard, they don't show up. I appreciate them. And I'm not complaining about 100 officers, security officers, because I may think we need more. I'm just saying the amount of money that we are putting inside of safety, and our schools are still not safe. That's the point. And I get it may make people butthurt, but those are facts. And that's the conversation in the community. My last point, as it relates to the police, Flatico is amazing. 1,000,000,000%. I support him all the way. But how many Flaticos you got, sir?
We only got two. We only got 2 officers. So when I say Flatico, that's our SRO.
Right. What I'm saying to you is, you only have one. Everybody can't do what Flatico do. What is my problem with the resource officer? Over there at Brookside, a lot of times things happen. We have to find the right people to put them up in there, because again, as I said downstairs, when you are a sworn duty person, you are obligated by law and because of your job, and it makes you a mandated reporter. What we had over there at Brookside was this, because it was me that was complaining. When I come to y'all and say something about the officer, you tell me you can't discipline them. I got to go to the city. When I go to the city and ask them to discipline them, they said no, the board pays for them. Which one is it? And I have emails, I have proof. I've been met with George Bridges, all of that. So that's what I'm saying. We got one Flatico. And so my last point, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to shut up about this. He's amazing over there at Washington campus. And we see the relationship that he built with them over there. Where we need him at is Brookside. They need the help. You got more fights over there. You got more outrage over there. You got kids that's coming in that's new to high school. That's where the relationship needs to be built at. But you asked the question, how do we get this community involved, intact? Well, first, Mr. Board President, the police have to treat us with some decency outside in the community. Until they do that, as an adult, when you mistreat me, I don't want my kid talking to you. I want them to stay away from you. That's what I'm saying to you. And you can't control that. That is something the police have to do. And I push this to the chief at every city council meeting. And I have yet got a meeting with him to see how do we help bridge this gap with the police and this community. They don't want to do it, sir. So why bring them in our district? Because they don't like being in this community.
Yeah, I get the passion. I just, and you know me and you, I had to say that. I'm not putting words in your mouth. But when it goes out, I'm glad that you reaffirmed your commitment and support of the safety department, and we can agree to that. And you have your other comments and your feelings about everything that you said, which will remain for public record and for them to hear. Ms. Lindsay?
I think the biggest takeaway that I have from your comments, and what I am hoping that we can have district-wide, not just with whether it's an SRO, whether it's a safety officer, whether it's a teacher, whether it's an administrator, whether it's a secretary or a custodian, the whole safety discussion is multifaceted. We keep focusing on the police force. When you want a safe community, you need to have people in proper housing. We can't control that. We have supports available, but we can't control that. We need to ensure people have a livable wage. There's no way that we can do it. We can just try to influence our higher legislators to get that put in place. What we can control, and there's other facets that are published, what we can control are the relationships that we build with each other in that building and in the community. I want all of our safety officers to build healthy relationships with students, not be friends, because we got adults and kids, that's not appropriate, but friendly. I am approachable. I am a trusted adult. You can come and talk to me. I want that for the teachers as well. I want all of our teachers to be a safe person for someone at any point that they need them. I want our administrators, I want our board members, I want every person that comes into contact with these kids to pour in love and build relationships. Because when you have that relationship, you are an all-star like Officer Filatico. I am not, and I've been transparent about it, I'm not a huge fan of SROs. But when it is done right, I see the value. I met Officer Jones, he changed my perspective. But to Mr. Edwards, your point, we need to find a way to ensure that those we invite in our building are going to build those appropriate relationships with the students and engage with our families and our staff in the buildings in the most appropriate way. So as we figure out these negotiations and what's going to happen with our SROs, that's a concern that I think we all share. We want to make sure they're going to be a positive presence in the building. And if everyone, whether you're in a school or just in the community, if you're building relationships with people, we'll start to see safety curb or make that change to more positive. Is it going to fix everything? No. But I'd much rather walk into any venue and be treated with kindness and respect and grace and give kindness and respect and grace. That's going to also help. So I really appreciate all of the points you brought up, Mr. Edwards. A lot of them are very valid.
All right, so I got a couple things referring to the SROs. Officer Filatico is great, and I agree with Mr. Edwards. He should be over at Brookside. That's where you have 5 middle schools all coming in all at one time. Where at Washington campus, those kids have already been together for 2 years over at Brookside. The last couple years, where most of our fights at the high schools happen? Brookside. And that's the thing. If the district's going to be paying for the officers and that, the district has to be involved with the city, and that should be part of the negotiations about selecting these officers. The difference between...
And I don't want to interrupt, Mr. Becky. I just want to be able to ask a clarifying question that would help me, and I hope you understand this respectfully. And typically, this is not the format, but I do want to be respectful of this conversation. But when we say, and we have out of one side of our mouth, that we don't want the officer to be involved, right? We got 100 safety officers. He shouldn't be the person that's intercepting fights anyway, because that was one of the comments that got brought up, is what is the role of the SRO? And going to that, if we think that they're there as a community to break up fights, I just want to be clear that I don't think that's what the board is expecting the police, the officer to go in there and do, because when they do, it escalates the situation instead of de-escalates it. But if the community, and if we're having a conversation about where the officer, whoever it is, should be placed, that Brookside may need the attention, I know from conversations that we've been having as a community that that's part of the issue, is sometimes how we think that those officers are being utilized and used. And so I just want to very clearly and put on the record that our SROs shouldn't be intercepting or breaking up fights in the instance. Do we believe that their presence will stop fights? We had an SRO there. I don't know if the presence of an SRO is also going to stop a fight. So I just want to be clear about that piece.
All right, so if you would have let me finish, I was going to explain that. So that's the thing. It's about having over to help start to build those relationships with all the kids coming in with the one. That's the problem. Like she said, Officer Mike Jones, another great SRO that we had in this district. But back then when Officer Jones was an officer, it was different times. Those cops were actually from the community. There was a requirement from the city at that time where the officers had to live in the community. That has gone away. They can live wherever they want. Basically, and so you're not getting the same officers. We have 150 officers on the police force, and only 2 apply. They say, hey, SROs, and 2 apply. Then they put them in the buildings. Just because you put one over it, that does not mean. Back then, there was requirements. They had to be juvenile officers. You know, they had to serve in the juvenile division for years before they can even do it. And that's what we're talking about, those relationship building. SROs should not be breaking up fights, because then the instances have, when they do break up a fight, then the officer gets hurt or pushed over. Now the kid's being charged with assault on a police officer. That's not what they're in the buildings for. They're in the buildings to help bridge that gap between the students. We talk about community policing. That's how you bridge the gap. You get them in there to make those relationships. talk to these kids, get them on the right path to make the right decisions. They have the backstories. They see it every day. I worked in the jail, and I have a lot of knowledge working with people. I used to interview kids that started fires when I was on the fire department. That's how you bridge those gaps. That's what the purpose of them being in those. Not only the presence, their squad car and that outside helps deter some of the crime, but that's the purpose of them being in that building, is to bridge the gaps. They should not be breaking up fights. They shouldn't be getting involved in them. And that's what we're doing, because we do get some power-hungry people that only been on force a couple years, and they're an SRO, had never worked with the kid or from this community. They don't understand the kids. That's what we're talking about. The school district, if we're going to pay for them, they also need to have thing. Because I remember back in the day, the school board met with the officers, and they actually interviewed officers back in the day. And that's what it needs to be. Because, like we said, not all officers are good officers. Not all officers are bad officers. But we need the right officers in these buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Sabecki, and I appreciate that conversation. And I know, at least conversations that I've had, there's some of the sentiments, and so I just wanted us to say that, because I think a lot of times that's the expectation, is that by putting a police officer in the building, that stops everything at that building, and I don't think that that's fair to place that on the burden of the officers as well. But I do know that the board, at least as it is, so Mr. Ray said, are we going to do it or we not? I think the board has agreed that we believe that we need SROs. So the conversations that we'll continue to have with the city is, how do we create a fair and equitable partnership in those conversations. I'll reserve my comments until negotiations are finalized, out of respect. And so also I do want to address, because I think it's important from a educational standpoint too, these are taxpayer dollars. So Mr. Edwards, just specifically to that point, before we can finalize any agreement, the board will have to vote on anything publicly. So it's not a behind the scenes where you won't know how much we're paying. That process is going to be very public and transparent. But while we get to that number, that is a private negotiation matter between us and the city. So we will keep the community abreast. We're talking, we're meeting. We requested a meeting. The mayor said she's willing to meet anytime. I'm tired. I won't be petty. We'll get through negotiations. And so I do appreciate the passion around that. And the SRO conversation is a real one that I do want to, again, publicly applaud Officer Filatico, who is an award-winning officer for the work that he's been able to do for Waukegan Public Schools. And while the city is requesting an additional compensation, which we understand, we also are aware that the city is getting a grant for the relationship and the work that is happening with Officer Filatico. So we look forward to continuing that partnership, and we look forward for the day when he returns to our buildings. But in the meantime, we do have a safety and security plan, right? And we've made sure to increase the number of safety officers that we have. We've made sure the new badge in and out process that we have for the at the high school that we just heard about, so we know where the students are when they're in the building. All of those are things that help us to improve the safety in Waukegan Public Schools. So we appreciate that. We do have.
Sorry, Mr. McBride, did you still have words or no?
Well, I did. I think, but I think everybody didn't talk enough. Still, even after I was listening, I still think you're missing a whole lot. I'm not even thinking about the police. Period. I'm thinking about the behavior of the students throughout the day. And if I had to make a comparison, and I'm safety myself up in Zion now. If I had to make a comparison, there's no comparison. There's a reason why there's no comparison. I think we could do a little bit better in terms of controlling our hallways. And then when we do catch a student, all we do is he's back out there again. So until we decide to have some accountability in the building, we're gonna keep getting what we get. Simple as that.
All right. So we got information items that have been listed here. So we have the Whittier Elementary School, and I'm going to do this. The items have been there in attachment. They're listed for information. If a community member has a specific question, or the board members, just raise your hand and I'll call you for that topic. First item is a Whittier Elementary School professional development request. The information has been listed there and is attached. EIR, grant materials. It's for the robotics STEM program, so excited to see that continue. C, purchase of ACT Education Corp pre-ACT fall assessments for grades 9 through 11. My only comment related to this goes back to for all students, but specifically, I have to remind us that the thing that created or sparked our Black Male Initiative is 1% at that time of 2018 juniors being proficient in both reading and math on the ACT. So if we understand the importance, now is this not ACT? Is it? I thought we were switching to SAT.
No, we're switching from SAT to ACT.
So is this
We're
act?
going back to it.
So we're going back to ACT.
Yes.
So especially with that, let's make sure that our kids, if the tests are different and they've been used to taking the SAT and now we're going to the ACT, I think we need to be intentional about making sure that the parents understand the importance of the test. We can partner with community members like Mr. Edwards and others to get them to understand the importance and to make sure that we have tutoring programs in order to make sure our students are prepared, because we understand how important it is. While yes, some colleges are getting rid of the requirement, if you do not get a proficiency score, you still may be required to take I'll call it remedial, even though it's not, but non-credit earning classes in college. So it's important that our kids get a proficient in a passing grade. Go ahead, Ms. Lindsay.
So, Dr. Cesario, can you just remind us why we're switching back to the ACT?
Sure. So this happened late in the summer, and so we did send a notice to parents and students. So it was the state's decision to move from SAT to ACT. And so much of what Board President Ewing mentioned in terms of creating awareness about what is the difference between one test and another, we're actually working on that right now so that we can have FACE bring that up and get more information. Dr. Brown, in his letter to community members and to teachers and parents, also did provide some links to resources. But really the shift was not our choice.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
But however, I think one last piece to this, without belaboring it, we are still, the work that we did at the high school, the work that we're doing in the elementary schools are all aligned to the college anchor standards. And so we're seeing alignment there. We are constantly reviewing what we're doing year to year with our curriculum to ensure that we are in alignment. So that was one of my big concerns, is we've been doing this work with curriculum, rewriting the course offering guides. The teachers have been collaborating with the Lincoln Center staff to develop assessments, and I didn't want that to be all for naught, and it's not. But it is an ongoing effort. So we're going to continue with that work, and we'll provide regular updates about where we're at and what we're doing.
I just want to make one additional comment on that. So from what it sounds like, I'm going to be contacting the state on this, because in April, the ACT that was once a nonprofit organization was actually bought by a private equity firm. And so that has a lot of data security around just from my perspective. So it's not a change that the state made that I'm excited about. But I will be following up with the state on that. Thank you.
Ms. Fabian.
Just a reminder to parents that there was some information sent out. If you have, if your student has an IEP, to ensure those accommodations are put into place. So for the DL department to just be keeping track of that, to ensure that parents are filling that out and that teachers are receiving that documentation well in advance as to who they need to make accommodations for.
Board President?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. President.
Yeah, Dr. Cesario, could you fill me in on how this ACT is used, how the children or students get their results? Does anyone talk to them about what it means, or to the parent? How do the kids value this test?
It is.
I mean, if you're going to college, I understand that. If a child is, they're thinking of college, but if they're not thinking of college, which many of our students may not be thinking of, how does a student feel about this test? What kind of counseling will they get, or will they get anything other than the result back?
So you're going to see later on in here, we're going to talk about ASCA. And so part of the work that we're doing is also working with counselors so that they can assist with some of that. But it does stand as a measure of their progress in areas of reading and math. And so it's very similar to the SAT, but the structure is slightly different. The way the questions are and I'm not an expert on either, but the SAT, the way that the structure of the questions and how they're formulated are slightly different. There are some shifts, but it is used in much the same manner that we were college admission. But again, it also does measure the student's progress on those two big areas, reading and math, relative to their peers across the country. Jennifer or Jonathan, do you want to add anything? That pretty much is a high-level overview.
Right.
I don't want to misspeak, but
we do a lot of testing though, and I wonder how it affects a child who doesn't necessarily coming in. For instance, I'm a 9th grader and I test and I realize I'm way below what I should be, average students. Who talks to me about that? How do I feel about myself and what I'm going to do?
Well, I can't necessarily speak to each individual child, but what I can say is that we use a portfolio of assessments to determine what the needs are for students. So I just referenced the course offering guides and some of the assessments that were created. We use local assessments, we use diagnostic assessments, we use the ACT, and it isn't the be-all, end-all. We shouldn't use one. In terms of the counseling, again, I mentioned ASCA and some of the work we're trying to implement around improving our practices on career and college planning and how we can use some of that information. It is one measure, right? And if there are students that need additional support, we're happy to provide that support, whether that be in terms of guidance and or social emotional support because of how they're perceiving their own performance. But again, that's one measure. It's not be all end all. And again, our philosophy, at least during my tenure, has really been to really look at a portfolio of assessments, not just standardized, but performance assessments, performance tasks, and working with our teachers union to ensure that those are things that are reflective in what we're doing in terms of supporting students and teachers.
Okay, thank you. I guess my
Sure.
my only concern is how we build self-esteem in our students that don't do well, and I don't know what we do for that.
Sure.
But if I'm an incoming freshman and I really blow that test and nobody talks to me, I'm not sure that I'm going to be interested, to take that test again in sophomore year or any of those tests.
Yep. And that's a really important piece, is talking about positive affirmation
Right.
and a positive approach. And that's actually a topic that we've discussed at length in our ASAT meetings about what are we doing to support students in that manner.
Right.
And that's something that we're looking at improving overall. We don't want students to feel like, because there is a lot of assessment, and
Right.
ACT is something that the state decided on, and it's something that we have to do. But I think it's how we're framing it.
Right.
What are we using it for? Why are we using it? What can you do with this, right?
Right.
And it's, it compares students to their peers across the country.
Right.
But what's most important to realize is how are they growing, right? And it's one measure again. So we want to use a portfolio of assessments to determine how well students are learning and growing.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
There's a question in back.
I wasn't going to speak, but I really care about the students in this district. So when you talk about ACT, and I asked Dr. Brown, there was no mention about the PSAT. Is that still happening? Yeah.
So with the switch to, traditionally with SAT, we've given the PSAT to 8th graders, 9th graders, and 10th graders in the fall.
the state required PSAT for 9th and 10th graders in the spring. They made a complete switch to where now for 9th graders and 10th graders that they're going to do the pre-ACT, which is a similar to the pre-SAT or PSAT. So that'll be the way 9th graders and 10th graders know if they're on track for meeting standards, receiving a certain score, earning a certain score as 11th graders. This year we will not do pre-ACT for 8th graders, but we'll be looking at trying to do it next year. We're trying to ease into.
I've been a teacher for a long time in this district, and I've had 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and I've always talked about high school and what they need and how they should be prepared. What I found is there's not a lot of discussion. I'm going to speak from where I was at. I don't think there was a lot of discussion about these tests, these assessments for the kids. They need to be aware of these assessments, especially in 6th grade, how important reading and math are. And they need to be exposed to that type of testing. Again, it ties into your scores. It ties into your reading scores, your math scores. It ties into your state testing, your IAR testing, your MAP testing, and it's for all students in this district. And you said, I think, assessments, portfolio. Did you elaborate on what type of assessments of this portfolio is?
I did. I said that we use units, our end of unit assessments. We're using performance-based tasks. That's what we've been working on.
And when we're talking about these assessments, are these assessments and I'm going to talk about middle school, okay? I'm going to tie this into the assessments that you're referring to. So when students are assessed on these assessments, where are they housed? Are they housed in Edulastic? Are they housed in Illuminate? Are these tests, do all the teachers put all those assessments in those platforms?
So it depends on the grade band, and it depends on the grade as well. But it's different for different assessments. So as I mentioned before, we use diagnostic tools. So in the primary, we're using a lot of those diagnostic tools, and that's what the teacher would primarily keep track of. They're using that to progress monitor, to set a baseline, progress monitor, and provide interventions when necessary on certain areas when students need them. So it depends on what it is.
So do you explain this to the parents about these assessments? Have a conversation, have a night talking about assessments, and not just do it one night.
That's an excellent point.
Or even do it on, excuse me, even do it on a Saturday for these parents.
So are you finished? I don't want to interrupt you.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was one of the things that we wanted to do when we started with this literacy initiative, is making sure that we were creating awareness. And that's another item that the FACE team is going to go out to share. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? And what it's connected to. So why are we giving these diagnostic tests? What's the purpose? Because I think it's a valid point that you're making. So yes, these are things that we are doing, and most of the time they are out of school time. So it's a new practice, I would say. I don't know. I can only speak during my tenure. I don't know if this happened in years past. I'm sure there's others that can ask. But to your point, are we informing parents? We're starting to do that, and we're starting to utilize the FACE team to assist us with that, because we totally agree. Part of the middle school redesign plan is to create articulation between the middle school and the high school. These things don't occur overnight. These are systems and structures that have to be built up over time. The work we're doing with the curriculum has taken years to develop. There's been consistency with key members here, and so we've been able to scaffold and build off of that. But the points you're making are extremely valid, and you're absolutely right. We have to create awareness for students. I think that's one of the things that Mr. Riddle was alluding to as well, that we have to create awareness. We have to talk about the importance of this because it is a skill. Students need exposure regarding the types of questions they're going to get. They can't just have them the day that they take the test. And so that's on parts of ongoing conversation. And now that we have this shift to the ACT, we're set back a little bit because, again, I'm not an expert. Jonathan Brown is an expert, but I do know enough about the SAT. I was more versed in that and how those questions were structured, because it wasn't about discrete skills. It was about multiple skills that were layered within one question. So if a student had difficulty reading, they had a problem approaching that type of question. If they had difficulty with math, and it was a multi-step question, they had difficulty with that. So those are types of things that we're working on. I know the high school already has worked with a prep course so that we can provide additional support. But we're going to have to build that out because the plan that we did have in place was literally, and this isn't because of lack of preparation, it is because of a decision, and I won't go into that. Yeah. Board Member Lensing alluded to it. She can speak to it. It's not my place to speak to it. But it was because of there were other factors there as to why that decision was made. But it happened late in the summer. We reacted appropriately. And we're constantly refining and reviewing what we do to make sure that we are providing the best services to our families, our students, our teachers, and that's ongoing. It's not always perfect. We take the feedback, we incorporate it, and we try to improve.
Well, I guess my question now is that you keep taking feedback, and we've been here for quite some time, and it seems like there hasn't been, I don't know what the word is, there's some improvement, but there should be more. There should have been a lot more. And when you talk about the curriculum, and I'm going to speak from my expertise, is that you have a curriculum, and then the content of that curriculum, is it lined up with what the students need to know at the high school in order for them to be prepared for these assessments?
Actually, that's part of the work that we were doing, is starting with the college anchor standards and working backwards, so that would absolutely happen. And so one of the first things that I initiated when I started here was making sure that we had consistency across all of our elementary schools through our middle and up to our 9th grade. So making sure that we used Carnegie for our math, which was aligned to the college anchor standards, so that there was consistency, so we can start having that conversation. Again, as I stated before, building systems and structures, developing those practices, PD. But these things do not happen overnight. We've been working, and I'm proud to say it's been a collaborative effort with our union members, with our board members who assisted in helping to facilitate the selection of our literacy curriculum, our literacy programming. It's been a lot of work. I applaud the work of our teaching and learning team, who's really led a lot of this, and a lot of the ASAP team. We're not exactly where we want to be. We're not satisfied with what the results are, and we want to continue to improve. But we are seeing incremental growth. We are seeing that.
I see the growth, some growth, but there should be a lot more growth.
Yeah,
and you're entitled to your opinion, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think part of this conversation around assessments is important, and we talked about the ACT. The only way our students are going to be prepared when they take the ACT, to Ms. A's point, is if they start in the elementary and the middle schools. As a parent, what I can speak to, it's very hard for me not to know, even to Mr. Riddle's point, where my student is. I'm getting emails about it when I meet with the teachers about it. The students can tell you where they are. They can tell you what their growth target is. So it is at the elementary school. I'm not going to speak for every middle schools. I know there are different parts and plans in the work. But I can speak to the three of us
Kid
that
came
have
home
kids,
today
is
told
we
his
do
levels.
talk about it. We talk about the importance of it. But to Mr. Cesar, Deputy Cesario's point also, is we talk about the fact that our students are more than a score. So I think it's a balance between understanding the importance and the criticality of these assessments and these tests and how it can, again, if you do not get a proficient score, that's the point. That means that you're taking a remedial class in college. So I do want us to say is if we want to continue the conversation around assessments, then I think we can bring that one back as a further topic.
And I also want to clarify that I don't want people to think that it's all about the test scores.
No, I don't think you did.
So, kids matter, and so do the families and the community. And we all need to be aware of it. And communication is key.
Very good points, Ms. A. All right, Mr. Edwards.
They kind of touched on it a little bit, but again, poor communication. We're not talking, y'all. You know what I'm saying? We don't explain nothing to the parents. And respectfully to you, sir, you've been in the district how long?
6 years.
6 years. And ma'am, you've been in the district quite sometimes too. No, not you, dear. I'm talking about, yes. My issue and what I want to encourage you guys to do, I shouldn't have to wait on the board president or the superintendent to set up something for you guys to get out to know this community. They need to know who you are, what you do. And you have an opportunity then to explain some of these things that she's talking about. These principals need help. And when I say they need help, y'all sit here, half of this community don't even know what y'all position is, what y'all do, what y'all roles or responsibilities are. We feel like y'all are afraid to come talk to us, set up town halls, go to these schools, set them up, be there, talk to them, introduce yourself, explain to them what you do, who you are. That matters. And so the last thing, to you, board president, and to everybody in here, when we talk about this initiative, can we stop saying black boy? Let's say young men. And then to that, when we created this and it rolled out, literacy was not something you guys was promoting. It was not the talk of this initiative. It was all about mentorship. But now that this community then caught up and is understanding we didn't change directions all of a sudden. What I'm saying to y'all is, man, stop playing with us. Like we don't see this or we don't understand this. We have certain staff that's been getting paid for this initiative and nothing is going on outside of meetings. And these meetings are not inclusive to the parents of these young men that we're talking about. And then the last piece, and I'm gone. I spoke about that ruling as it relates to the Supreme Court. I encourage you guys to really look at that while we're talking about this initiative for young African American males, because I spent a lot of my time downtown at the court building. I talked to a lot of those lawyers, and as I asked them questions, this district is flirting with a very thin line because we're talking about the 14th Amendment, right? What about the Caucasian young man, the Latino young man? You have to think about all of that. Because we keep saying black boy initiative. So we're singling out a small group of people. What about the black young ladies? We're not talking about them, y'all. So that's what I'm saying. When we be so quick to throw some money somewhere, we need to start thinking about it before we roll it out. Because once you speak, you put your foot in your mouth. And we remember, these videos are recorded. We can go back and we can listen to them again. That's all I'm saying. So going forward, I encourage you guys, if you need help with that and setting up and getting people out to these meetings, I promise you, I can get them there. I just need you guys to show up and give me some notice. But we have to do that. That helps, and I promise you, it will bring some of those parents out to start getting involved.
I just have one thing to say off one of your comments, because it did strike a nerve with me when you said things don't happen overnight. Yes, they don't. But how long does it take? Because they don't happen overnight, but how many kids are being passed along and going through the system and out of the system that they got skipped over? 6 years, that's a long time. So what's the time frame? We're passing along, because I'm going to say it. I don't believe our credits were lowered to 17. My son did graduate with 22, 23 credits. Me as a parent, do I think he's ready for the real world and out there? Absolutely not. Because there was a lot of things that happened in our schools that they didn't, without teachers, in classrooms, and a lot of that stuff. So I understand what you say. It takes time, but how much time? Because we're passing a lot of students that ain't getting this opportunity, and they're getting put in the real world, and they're not ready for it. So we got to do better, and communication is the key. This district's got to start communicating better.
Yeah.
Because we keep saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. You say it every board meeting. Everyone that talks is, we're going to get a call. We never get a call. So communication is a key. You get paid to do that, so let's do it.
And that's why I say, Mr. Beckett, we can. I think that's why you've been seeing, even with the superintendent, increasing the amount of communication. I know they senior level administrators went to Waukegan Township. I do know the superintendent has a commitment that staff is out in the communities. So when you see them, do say hi, do make introductions. I do think it's important that dialogue has to be not only transparent, but I could just speak for me. And you've been in these meetings, and we had a whole group of people for months that talked about how we should be focusing on our most vulnerable population, which the reason that we're doing the Black Male Initiative is because on the metrics that we looked at, those students were sitting at the bottom. And so when we talk about equity, we got to talk about equity. And so I will continue to say Black. I appreciate the warning about what that could mean, but for so many times I think we've been afraid to say Black, and that we want to do things and provide opportunities for this group. We're going to continue to support all students. We're going to continue to make sure that there are resources for every child. This is one initiative. It is not the only thing that's going on. And so if we have to figure out a better way to articulate that, we can talk through it. But I don't think that we should throw it out. I think the reason we're intentional about calling out the Black Male, and we can call it, the Black Male Achievement Initiative, is because I think it's important that we continue to highlight, and based on the feedback that I gotten from the community, is they want to see resources. They don't want to just see the talk. So when you talked about mentorship, no, how is it going to be an academic plan that doesn't address academics? So yes, literacy has to be at the forefront of it. I don't think that's double talk, Mr. Edwards, right? I think that is, mentorship is a component, but our kids got to be able to read. Like, I don't, that's not, like, that has to be part of it. And I don't say that facetiously. I'm being honest, because I'm just as passionate as you are, right? And that's the piece that I don't think we really talk about, is we want to call BS, but when we're really trying to move programs and processes forward, I'm all for talking and for communication. But and I'm not going to get into that piece, but part of the issue with the money that we allocated is the position that we had went unfilled for almost a year. So when we talk about people being paid to, like, it's a lot of information that's out there that what I will do is we can, because I know we had the presentation last week, but do a better job of cleaning it up, because I don't want people to feel like this is just BS. And literacy has always been a part of me, because I understand what's needed. When we had a meeting and we talked about reading by third grade, the importance of that and what it means for the scores that they get on those tests and by the ACT. We get the importance of it, so we can look through it. And those 6 pillars is continuing to be a process that's going to evolve. More things are going to come from it, and all of our students will be supported. I have to say that piece is, I get, while some people don't like that we call out our Black male students, is that's something that I'm committed to repeating on camera, because I think it's important. Go ahead, Mr.
Real quick, so my issue was Black boy. Black male, I love it.
And I apologize, because I said
so
Black
it's the
boy,
Black
male.
boy part,
it's Black
right?
male student.
And so now, this is why sometimes, I say to you guys, some things doesn't need a response, because when you guys speak, sometimes you give me a chance to come back. So as I listen to you, you've been on this board for 8 years.
Yep.
She's been here for 8 years. You guys believe in what you do, right? You believe in this initiative, correct?
I do.
So please help me understand, if y'all believe in it so much, how did you take your sons out of it and send them somewhere else? Do this somewhere else. Have this initiative. This is what I'm saying, and I'm not mad, because I believe you all as parents should do the absolute what's in the best interest for your kids, right? So what I'm saying to you, Mr. President, and to you, Superintendent, when you selling a product, this just hood. When you selling a product, if you ain't gonna buy it, how you expect somebody else to buy it?
But I spoke on that.
Yes, because y'all damaged us. And I'm saying this because for 8 years we've supported you guys. For 8 years we believed in you guys. For 8 years you guys have told us this. And for the last couple of years we've been rolling this out. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. And I'm sorry, Mr. Ewing, I'm gonna hold your feet to this fire.
You can't.
You want me to believe in this black male initiative?
It's not just my choice, Rayon Edwards.
I get that, Mr. Brandon Ewing. It's not just your choice, but I voted for you, and I expected you to be a leader. And part of being a leader, sir. Excuse me. Let me finish.
Let me say
part
your
of
point.
being a leader. Because every community member now out here is talking. How do I want my son to be in this program, and this leader son is not in this program?
Yeah. Okay. So have that conversation with me, but don't try and use it as a political hit, and don't try and use it because my son looked for an opportunity. He wanted to do something different, and regardless of what seat I sit in, when I leave this board, when he graduates high school, I don't want him to say that my daddy made me make a choice because of his political position. So I put the. But yeah. So I won't defend. Yeah. Go on social media, Ray. I'm not scared of your social media. No, you played me.
That's why you stepping down. That's why.
But I didn't step down.
You political. You played with us for 8 years. Your political ambitions. Just like we hired Anthony McIntyre for this book bag giveaway for bouncy houses. He don't have no bouncy house company, but we always manage ways to give him money. You explain to him why.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You got up there and she made $25 an hour for a whole year. That's why he's getting that attention. And superintendent, you know you've been pressured to work with him and you don't want to. I'm tired of the game.
Nah.
I know the conversation and I have facts.
No, you don't have facts. You don't, and it's okay because I didn't allow you to bully the conversation. You screamed, you yelled, and you ran out. And this is why, Mr. Sabecki, it's hard to have a conversation. And why I say that, and why I'm putting you the only one that's still left. So I'm not picking on you. When I say Mr. Sabecki talked about us being able to have conversations, and this whole thing devolved just because I wanted to set the record straight. I made a comment last week about a personal decision that we made in my family and my household. I support Waukegan Public School 110%.
Brian, this ain't got nothing to do with AASA, what we're talking about. So we need to just stop right now and go let him continue what the initial what's on the agenda. This ain't nothing to do with the agenda. I would ask that you just kill it right now. It ain't gonna get nowhere. It's gonna just get worse. So please.
That's fair.
That's
Ms. Lindsay.
I was going to have 2 comments. Now I have 1. I just want to reaffirm with the Black Male Initiative that our staff is going to learn skill sets, right? Literacy should be first and foremost for all of our students. right? So we have a new program and our teachers are learning that program. I just want to reiterate again, it's not going to be perfect the first year. They're still learning and it's working, right? But as we work the Black Male Achievement Initiative, there are skill sets our staff are going to acquire because we are targeting our black males to achieve because they've been the most underserved group. That is not saying that it's just going to benefit our black males. So as we look to the Supreme Court ruling, those skill sets that we are developing with our staff are going to apply to our black girls or black females. They're going to apply to our Hispanic or our Latino students. They're going to apply to our white students and our Asian students, right? This board is very committed for all students to achieve, and in order to do that, you have to look at the lowest group and say, we need to bring you up. So I'm very proud that we are doing that as a district, but I don't want it to seem like we're just dumping all of these resources in one group and then it's gone when the initiative's done. That work continues as we get better as a staff serving our community.
And we're also not excluding students who want to be part of different programs. Every student will be excluded if they fit the requirement. Included.
Yeah.
Sorry, included.
Right. Ms. Lensing, I thought you
Thank you.
explained
It's
that
been a late
very
night.
well.
Yes,
Sorry.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Lensing.
You're very welcome.
Are there any other questions or any other items? We have some professional development renewals that are listed there. Those things will be coming before the board for future action. The attachments are there.
I'm pleased to see on item F that Association for Counselors, I think that's really important. They're an important group of people in our district. Every group is important, but they are often, stressed out and asked to do a lot. So I'm really glad we're giving them some resources and some PD that they need.
Thank you. Ms. Fabian.
And then I'm also looking at item O, mental health youth first aid. I'm really excited to see that, especially we know that emotional disorders are often invisible, so having people that are trained to be able to assist. But I'm reading it as they will do the initial support, the initial intake. So I just want to ensure that we have plans. What then? So once that intake is done, or that screener, or however you would like to frame it, once we've made contact and started that initial dialogue, ensuring that we have that what's next and that follow-up and that resource.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good to see you. So this is actually mental health first aid training so that our staff gets trained so we can be sustainable in the long run with making sure that our full big district staff continues to be trained. So we had a goal that we worked with Jocelyn Center with a grant so that 100% of our staff was currently trained, which is great. We're on track to do that. However, we want to make sure that we have the sustainability within district and we have the expertise to move forward after that is over. So we can do training for our own staff that's coming on board. We can do, redo boosters with different schools and different groups, and that's something also that we can provide to community and parents so that they can be mental health first aid trained.
Question?
That's terrific. I just finished that first aid class, not the instructor one you're talking about, but it's an excellent program.
Yeah, so I love that completely because, again, we need to have that. But I guess my question is more, again, once everybody's trained and we do those initial, because it's first aid, but having a follow-up for community and parents to know, where do I go for if this issue doesn't get resolved with that first touch point or a few touch points, just making sure that we have like a bunch of full service options after that.
And it is part of that. And so, this came out of the mental health toolkits. We were training the staff. They did not have, Jocelyn was doing what they could do with the staff that they have, and this is in response to really trying to move that out, right? Right. But to your point, and also to clarify, it cannot be one and done. Mm-hmm. So we're also going to have to, and this is something initially when I spoke with Jocelyn, that We can't just have you can't just come on and on the screen and meet with people for 3 hours and then it's done. We need to have a follow-up, and then we also need to have ongoing training for new staff, but also to assess how we're doing this. So if we're training our staff to have this ability to identify trauma, identify needs within themselves, within their colleagues, within the students, then we also need to have the ability to make sure that we have a process to make sure that we're refining this over time.
Thank you.
Do you want to?
Mr. McBride and then Ms. Lindsay.
You kind of touched what I was thinking in your comments, and that was I know we have a lot of that going on in the school right now, and it's probably unnoticed. So I'm just wondering, do we have some type of method that we can determine when a kid is going through some changes?
So and that's the effort to do this, is to create more awareness. And the only way that we can do that is continue to provide resources, supports, but also to educate regarding what are the signs, right? And we have to continually do that. And it may not be popular, but it is accurate in the truth. It's not a perfect science. And that's why we have to do as much as we can to create awareness, make sure that we're informing parents, but also educating our staff members so that they can identify that. And that the board has spent a lot of time, money, and effort in ensuring that we have resources at Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, right? So we have something for everyone, we have for a small group, and then we have individualized. And so we have youth guidance, we've had AHS, now we transition to Jocelyn, and now, again, it's about how are we developing the skills, much to what Ms. Lensing had said earlier about the literacy piece. How are we also developing the skills of our teachers, our paras, our security staff, so that they can identify trauma or when a child or another adult may be in need. So it's an ongoing effort.
Ms. Lopez? Am I right? Am I pronouncing your name right? Jennifer? Okay. Well, I was really preparing this to Jennifer.
Rice de la Sanchez.
Yeah.
Miss Rice de la Sanchez.
I guess to get us to this.
Jennifer Lopez.
Yes.
Yeah, not in this
Right.
current, not in this age, maybe 20 years ago.
Well, to get us to this point, can you give us an example of what you have ran into in the district in reference to someone you may have identified that brought us to this point?
Just as far as, so I could summarize, if a student is struggling, or even if a staff member is struggling to support a student that's in crisis, is that what you're asking?
No, well, I'm asking because we, at this point, somewhere along down the line, we, outside of just what's going on in society, have you ran into any students that you may have seen that was on the verge of suicide or anything of that nature?
Yes, quite often. As a teacher, yes, there are signs that we are trained on, that we observationally and we learn as we go to even see it quicker and sooner and faster and often. And as a principal, as a teacher, we have teams within our buildings that help support that, and a bunch of wraparound support. And when you go to them, that's their job to help you. And whether it is a whole class conversation,
So my
small
question
group, or
is,
individual.
have you literally that you can recall where you have saved a student that you seen was on the brink? That's what I'm getting at.
Yes, I would refer it immediately to someone that is a psych or a social worker, and that's really my role, is to support them in that.
Yeah, I think that's there are experts in the buildings, but again, I simply put, it's mental health toolkits are to provide everyone with trying to having the awareness to identify trauma within oneself, within another adult, a colleague, or within a child that you may be servicing. And then there are resources that we have, and that's part of, we have mandated reporter training, but then we also, part of this this mental health toolkit is also talking about how can we provide resources to the student. But having the identification piece is the most critical part of it. We talk about, you know, not wanting children to slip through the cracks academically, well, also social emotionally. Again, you know, we talked about mental health needs of also our adults in the buildings. That has an impact on our students, and it has an impact on other adults. We want to make sure that all of us, and it is a holistic approach to this, that we're all safe, that we all feel welcome, that if there is concern, that we are supporting those folks, whether they be children or adults. So that's what it's more about. It's not about becoming resident psychologists, social workers, or counselors. We have very highly qualified folks. It's not about taking their jobs. It's, again, about having awareness. And that's the best way to assist with mental health, is to create an awareness. What are some signals? What are some signs? How can we assist? And sometimes it's as simple as asking, are you okay?
I just got one other question, and I'm going to close my comments, and that is, when you talk about mental health, there's some things that I see in our district, in the buildings, that I think is not being, it's identified, but it's not, money is not being towards correcting those measures, and that's substance abuse. A lot of our kids are using drugs, and you've heard the story, one drug leads to another drug, and if we don't do something about that, regardless of the academics, whatever you want to speak in terms of our kids, if you don't do nothing about that, we're doing a disservice to them. And I think a lot of some of the issues that we have has to do with substance abuse. So I don't know what kind of programs we're building dealing with that, but I would say to you that's important to me, because number one, I see it all the time, and I know not only does it's a direct line to the penitentiary, it's a direct line to all our graveyards that we see. Simple as that.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah. So I would say when you start looking at that, the mental health, please don't disregard the substance abuse case.
I think Director Wilson presented that was something that came out of the safety committee as well, in response to community concerns and Ms. Hannah wanting to bring a discussion about it, that there is a plan around vaping, and that is tangentially connected with that. So from my understanding, correct me, Superintendent, that those plans are in the works.
They are, and there's also another component of that. We are also going to be looking for RFPs and seeing how we can support that through our wraparound center.
I mean, vaping is good. I mean, I that's not what I was really. I said drugs. Most of the time, I would guarantee you, if you go into a classroom, if you are able to identify a kid sitting there, he might be high while he's trying to learn, and that's all I'm saying. So be aware of that, because once again, we know that when we hear we got drug dealers in the school, you got a drug, you got to sell it to somebody. So I'm just saying that's an issue that we have. I think we need to just take a look at. That's all I'm saying.
Will do. Thank you.
So can I just add one point? Because I think what you're getting at is you're feeling like you're seeing more numbers, because you're saying, why? How did we get here now? I think it's part of when you know better, you do better, right? So there's more science around mental health. There are a lot more, there's more screeners that have been out, more studies on the brain, and we've been learning that there's more invisible disorders than we thought there were, right, neurologically. And so if all of these people are being trained to now spot these signs and symptoms, the numbers are going to increase. Not so much so, and it could be external factors, right? There's trauma in the house, there's trauma in our world, but sometimes it is a neurological defect or a disorder that they can't help. But again, if there's more awareness, there's going to be an increase of numbers, because now we're counting, we're seeing it, we know better, we do better, and we can support. To the drug component, part of mental health does touch on that, because a lot of times people are using substances in in order to control or to help themselves feel better when they're emotionally dysregulated.
Self-medicating.
And so, exactly, they're self-medicating. And so if we are able to help our students to get to a place where they're mentally well, that's also going to support in the reduction of illegal drug use. So I think it all goes hand in hand, but we also have to understand it's not like our students all of a sudden are in this crisis. I think there have been many that just because we didn't have that awareness or that recognition weren't able to get that resources or support. And so that's why I'm saying as long as we have a follow-up to be able to provide them the resource and support to continue on their mental health journey, you know, that's where I'm concerned. We don't want to do a one and done, so
No.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
We're creating that awareness and creating that safety net. And
Right.
So I'm saying
going
this,
with
I'm saying the
partnerships.
same thing
Right.
you saying. Back in the day, but we talking about mental health. What we talking about this, we had DARE program, we had STARE program, we had the Locals program. All that was intervention to help kids understand that drugs was a detriment to their health.
Yeah, and
that's all I'm saying.
creating awareness.
That's
Yeah,
all I'm
no,
saying,
I think all of those things go hand in hand, and just again, the more awareness we can create, again, the safety and well-being goes hand in hand with the improvement of instruction and other pieces. It can't just happen in isolation, and it does take time. So, thank you.
Yes, Eliza.
So I have three things. One, I just want to clarify my J-Lo comment joke about the 20 years. It's about how she is currently in the public. It was no comment on age. I was worried that was what the understanding was. So I just wanted to clarify because she's a little different now. So I apologize if there was a misunderstanding. Yeah, nothing about your age. She's just in a different place in her life, is what we will say. I do want to say that when we went to, let me stop laughing. When we went to Triple I did attend one of the sessions that was talking about ACEs, right? Those.
Right, that's you.
Adverse childhood.
Thank you. Like, it's late. Yeah. Experiences, right? So essentially traumas. Like, our kids walk around, you can't always see it. But in that session, it talked about building connections with our students, even if you don't have that background. So it just keeps coming back to the same theme, right? So building a relationship with individuals, pouring love into our students, that's a great first step until we get this fully rolled out. I'm gonna ask one question, and hopefully you give me grace if I misstep, but I'm just curious as to why this is something we have to go outside of district for, and we don't have someone inside district to cover these points.
The points of the training for the
Yes,
so
back to the agenda
because
item.
it was again it's about capacity,
Okay.
right? And that's initially why we went out,
Okay.
and then we we're doing this again so we can have more people to do this work.
Yeah.
Because Jocelyn, they could do it, but part of the feedback is we wanted to expose this to all of the teachers within a shorter period of time. It was going to take, I believe it was 2 years to get to go through everyone. And based on, we were still coming, and I know people don't want to hear this, but some of the trauma and a lot of what happened, we saw a lot more occurrences of behaviors that never manifested themselves to the same extent that they had post-pandemic, and that was a part of it. And a lot of people were looking for mental health providers to support this. And so, again, I think that is, one of the reasons is we needed to have this, and we didn't want to wait.
Yeah.
Time is of the essence.
Yeah.
And so, as I'm saying, it takes time to do these things. If there are things that we can move, we will move. Looking for some of these results related to some of what we're implementing doesn't happen automatically. You don't do this and see the desired result within the end of the month, right?
Right.
But going back to your point,
Yeah.
it's the sheer volume that we were dealing with, and ensuring that we had the specific skills that they were looking for, that they were consistent with what Jocelyn was doing with the mental health toolkits. Jennifer or Amanda, is there anything that I missed or I needed to touch on specifically?
I won't make a joke. They don't come across well.
So I would just say that yes, we partnered with Jocelyn Center post-pandemic because we knew we needed to get, like, so to speak, the tier 1 for what does mental health look like, right? And that rollout was approximately 2 years. One of the things that I've talked quite a bit about with social workers, counselors, and psychs is that we are the experts in the district over that, so we should be the ones who are trained to train our staff. And that's why we pursued this. Plus, that allows us to continue this training well after.
Beautiful.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
Yes, please.
Motion by Ms. Fabian, second by
Second.
Ms. Lindsay. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned.